All right, so welcome in. I wanted to show you what's going to happen now that you have completed the survey. Now we've created a large amount of data that you can go through and analyze, and you're going to analyze this data over the course of the rest of the semester. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the responses from these questions and you're going to analyze them using the tools that come up. So, you'll make histograms and you'll run hypothesis tests and confidence intervals and linear regressions and all the tools that we're going to learn along the way, you're going to apply to the questions in this survey that you've decided to analyze. But there's a couple things that you should know ahead of time. So first of all, here we've got the survey that you took. So for instance, here's a survey that I'm giving 1 year, right? It might vary from semester to semester, but you can just kind of see how this works. We've got some different questions here that are being asked. So like the first one is pick a random number between 1 and 4. The third problem is which is better, burritos or tacos. So you can see we're asking different types of questions, and so we're going to get different types of data here, right? Number one will be numerical, quantitative data. This one down here will be categorical data, and then you can pick and choose the questions that you want to use to analyze. Remember, you can change later, but just pick some questions that you find interesting that you want to work on. So then you've got the link to the actual results here. So that's what we have here, right? So the way it works is each column here is the results to one question, and each row is the results from one person. So the rows are people, the columns are questions, right? And that allows us to have our data organized in a way that we can analyze. Now, there's one problem already that you may or may not have noticed, and that's the numbering. So StatCrunch, the way they do the columns here, was clearly organized for based on the computer programming behind StatCrunch. So computer scientists oftentimes like to start counting at 0, whereas most people are used to counting at 1. And this leads to a problem. Over here in the actual survey, see how the first problem is question number 1, right? Pick a random number between 1 and 4. But over here, look how the first set of data is Q0. So the data for Q0 corresponds to question 1, meaning all of your data columns are going to be off by 1 number. So you have to keep that in mind when you're going through and trying to match up the data for one column, in this case Q0, with the question over here in the survey, question number 1. So for instance, see that question 3 is which is better, burritos or tacos? Well, look at the column that has burritos or tacos as a response. It's Q2. So question 3 in the survey, those results are under Q2 in the data. So you just have to keep that straight because sometimes it's not as obvious as the tacos burritos question, right? Look over here. It would be easy to mix up these yes/no questions over here, and then you're accidentally using the wrong data for a problem. So that's the first thing to consider. Okay. Now what we want to do is clean up our data because you can see oftentimes there are problems. If we go over here, you can see sometimes people are answering in ways that StatCrunch isn't going to know what to do with. Sometimes, like I think this question here was about grades. Notice how some people are giving a percentage, some people are giving letter grades. That's going to be a little bit of a problem to deal with. So you're going to have to go through and clean these up. So you don't want to keep cleaning them every single time you use them. What you want to do is be able to just get your data that you want to deal with in a separate file, and you just save that. So let's just open another StatCrunch tab here. So I'm just opening up a fresh StatCrunch tab. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go into the data here, and you're going to pick the column that you want. So really what you're going to do is come back here and figure out which question do I want to use. Okay, let's take this question right here. It's number 17. When you buy groceries, what % of the time do you bring your own bag? So we have to say, okay, that's question number 17. So that's going to correspond to column 16 in the data, right? So I go over here to column 16 and I see this column, but we want to separate that out. By the way, do not edit this original data file. Okay, do not do any editing in here. You just want to take your data into a separate file. If you start editing this file, you're going to mess stuff up for everybody. So don't mess with the original data. Okay, you want to do what I'm telling you to do right here, which is copy it into another screen. So what we're going to do is go to the top of Q16. I'm going to click the top. You want to be careful about how you do this because it's easy to do the copy paste wrong and then your data is going to get all messed up. So you go to the top, click the title, and pull down. Then on Windows, it's Control C. If you're on a Mac, then it's going to be like Apple C or whatever the symbol is on your particular Mac. They have a few different ones. All right. Then what you're going to do is go to your empty file. You're going to go up, click the very top, not the top data box, but the actual title, and click Control V, and it copied that whole column for you perfectly. Okay. And then you can just put in here a name, percentage. I think you're not supposed to use the percentage symbol. I think that messes up the programming. So try to write words in your title. Try not to use symbols. Percentage grocery bag, something like that, so that later when you're looking at it, you're going to know what that thing is. Now we want to look at this and see if there's anything we have to do to clean things up. Are there any answers that don't make sense or they look like they're a mistake? What if someone put in here 200? 200% of the time you remember to bring a bag to the grocery store. What does that even mean, right? So we go down here and see if anything looks like it's a problem. Oh, and we have a problem here. Here's a response. Let's see, what does it say? We can open this just so we can look. I always forget and feel bad. Okay, so that person expressed their feeling, but they didn't really answer the question properly. And this is part of doing statistics. You ask questions, and people are going to answer in a way that is not useful for your data. So what you have to do is try to come up with the best interpretation of what that person meant. So in this case, if someone says they always forget, then I think it's safe to put that at 0. You never want to misrepresent or change data to something that you don't think it actually represents. But in this case, I think we're able to say, let's give that a 0. And now StatCrunch is going to be able to change that. There are going to be times where you're just stuck. You're not going to know how to change their answer. Like sometimes people, if the question is, how many hours a week do you work? And someone puts, or I think one last year was, how many times do you eat fast food in a week? And someone put too much. Well, that's completely useless, right? That's not helpful at all because that's just lost data. You're not going to be able to fix that data. So if you think you understood what the person was trying to say, change it to that. Otherwise, some data is just not salvageable. But what we've now done is we've converted this to a column that StatCrunch is going to be able to analyze. So for instance, if I go in here to stats, do summary stats columns, percent grocery bags, hit compute, it's showing me the size. Oh, there are 55 people that responded. Here's our mean, standard deviation, median, quartiles, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So that's what cleaning your data is. You have to go in and you have to take all the work that people did wrong when they were answering your question and you have to make it right. Let's take number 24. What type of workout do you prefer? Now, that's a pretty open-ended question. And so this may be too broad for some of the answers that you were given, right? So let's go over here. That's going to be question 23. So I'm going to click the top, drag down. I'm going to copy paste. So Control C, come over here, put it at the top, Control V to paste. And let's just put preferred. What did they say? What did they call it? Was it exercise? Preferred workout. Okay, preferred workout. Okay. Now you can see some people were real general, cardio, lifting. Some people were real specific, cable pull. This person likes a specific answer. This person was, I think, being funny, walking to the fridge. So you might have answers here that are not useful. In fact, if we try to go in and, say, do a pie chart of this, look what a mess it is. There's entirely too many answers here. This is not a helpful pie chart at all. Like most pie charts are not very helpful. In fact, we probably should be looking at a bar plot. Preferred workout, compute. But even here, that's way too many things. We have way too many categories. In fact, look, we have cardio twice. We have cardio with a capital C. We have cardio with a lowercase c. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? We have some people over here put lifting. If you look back, we've got lifting with a lowercase l, lifting with a capital L. We've got weightlifting. We've got lifting weights. All those are being counted separately. So what you're then going to want to do is go through and change all of those to weightlifting. Maybe we decide we want it all capitals. And then we can just like control, it's not letting me. We do control C. Then I can go through everywhere it says lifting. I can just do control V. So I can kind of quickly go through, okay, lifting, weightlifting, weight training, weightlifting, weightlifting, strength building. I guess you could interpret that a few different ways. That's one of those judgment calls where you're going to have to determine, like, I think for strength building, maybe they meant lifting, but maybe they mean, some kind of other exercises where you're jumping on top of a box or, different things like that. Weights. So we're taking all these different answers that mean the same thing. Strength training, again, you could kind of interpret that different ways. Maybe you want to throw it in weightlifting, lifting weights, free weights. See how we got all those different answers? That question may have been better asked by giving people specific categories to choose from for their favorite type of exercise. Then you wouldn't be having to do as much cleanup later. It's always hard to know, should you give people an open response like this, or should you just give them specific answers to choose from? Like for instance, if we were doing this on our own, maybe someone somewhere in here it says yoga. Where am I missing it? Anyways, somewhere in here it says yoga. If we were giving people specific options, maybe we'd forget to put yoga. But you can see that by giving them lots of options, we've now had to go through and clean up a lot of these different answers that were given, right? Here's yoga. Yoga's down there. So you can see now if we go through and do a bar chart, we should see, or a bar plot, we should see less options. See how there's fewer now? There's still too many, but there's fewer because we took all the different ways that people were saying weightlifting and we just put it into this one. It's probably this one right here, this super tall one, right? So then what you'd want to do is go through and look at what are all the different ways that people talked about walking, right? Because we had, let's see, what did we had here? We had walking, and there's cycling, which is obviously different. And the leg workout, you'd have to decide, does that go in with weightlifting? Depends on what they're doing with their legs, but I'm guessing they meant lifting, athletic. You'll have to interpret that. So it looks like there wasn't too many different ones that meant walking. Okay, but what about cardio? So we've seen cardio a few times. There's cardio with a lowercase c. So again, we can just sort of make all those so that they look the same. So that all the cardios look the same. See if I got them all. Now you go through and do your bar plot. Preferred workout. See, it's getting a little better. We have a few less categories, and you can see these getting taller because instead of having five different ways of saying cardio, we've now got just the one, and we're counting them correctly. So this is called cleaning up your data, and you have to do it in order to make your data usable. It's way worth, your data just won't really be any good without it, but you can see how it's making our graphs look better. It's going to make our understanding look better. So I would still spend some more time here. Cable pull, I guess I would probably put that in weightlifting. Someone's got dance here. Do you want to consider dance cardio? These are decisions you're going to have to make, and then you'll sort of categorize all of these. Okay, so that's what cleaning the data is. So you want to go through and do that for all of the questions that you've chosen. So remember, I had you choose questions in the previous discussion. 2 quantitative, that's numerical. 2 qualitative, that's categorical, and then 1 binary question. So you're going to have at least 5 questions in here. You're going to go through, you're going to clean up the data. So then what you're going to do, because you don't want to have to keep doing this every single time, is if you come up to data and you go down to save, I'm not actually going to save it because I've already got my data where I need it to be. We're going to hit save. And it says come up with a file name. So you're going to write some file name, whatever you want it to be. And then you're going to click save. And when you do that, it's going to appear right over here in My Data. So every time you come back to StatCrunch, if you go to My Data, your file with the cleaned up data will be sitting there waiting for you. And then you can just dive right into analyzing the data. You don't have to like figure out your questions or anything anymore. Okay. And then what you're going to do is come back in here, and you're going to post an image of your cleaned up data. You're going to post that in here, right? That's sort of the proof that you went through and you did the assignment, right? And there's lots of different questions that are going to have to be cleaned up. If you ask someone, how tall are you? You're going to get about 5 different ways that people answer that. So you're going to have to go through and you're going to have to convert all those into the, consistent heights that StatCrunch can read. Okay. So you just want to spend a little time cleaning up your data, save it so you don't have to do all this work again. Make sure you save it. Don't forget to do that. And then come in here and post an image of your cleaned up data.